My sister-in-law said, "Our kids should get the lake house because they're actually blood-related, but my father-in-law had other plans." The comment came during our annual 4th of July gathering at the property my husband's family had owned for 60 years. My father-in-law, the kind of man who built everything he owned from nothing, sat quietly at the head of the table while his daughter-in-law made her case. "I mean, let's be honest," she continued, gesturing to her 3 kids. "Blood is blood. My children carry the family name. That should matter." She looked directly at me when she said it. My husband and I had been married for 8 years. We had 2 kids through adoption, both under 5. In her mind, that made them less than, made them not real family. My father-in-law set down his fork. "That's an interesting perspective," he said calmly, too calmly. What my sister-in-law didn't know was that 3 months earlier, my father-in-law had called me to his office downtown. He'd handed me a thick manila envelope and said, "I need you to keep this safe. Don't tell anyone, not even my son." Inside were updated property deeds. The lake house, along with the 40 acres surrounding it, had been quietly transferred into a trust. My name was listed as the sole trustee, not my husband's name, mine. "Why me?" I'd asked, completely confused. "Because you're the only one who comes to visit when it's not a holiday," he said. "You're the only one who helped me replace the dock last spring, the only one who brings the kids to see me on random Tuesdays just because." I'd tried to protest, but he waved me off. "My daughter-in-law thinks family is about DNA. I think it's about who shows up." Now, sitting at this table, while she made her case for why her blood-related children deserved what she assumed would be his legacy, I stayed silent. My father-in-law caught my eye across the table. The corner of his mouth twitched. He was enjoying this. "So when are you planning to update your will?" my sister-in-law asked, switching tactics. "The kids are getting older, they should know what to expect." "Already done," my father-in-law said. "Had my lawyer finalize everything last month?" Her face lit up. "That's wonderful. So smart to plan ahead." "Indeed," he said, raising his glass. "To family." "To family," she echoed, looking smug. What she couldn't have known was that 5 weeks ago my father-in-law's doctor had given him a diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 6 months, maybe less. He'd sworn me to secrecy until after this weekend. Under the table my phone buzzed, a text from his lawyer. "Envelope B is in the garage safe. He said you'd know what to do with it." I excused myself, found the garage, and opened the safe. Inside was a second envelope labeled for the family meeting and a note in my father-in-law's handwriting. "Read this aloud tomorrow morning, trust me." I slipped it into my bag just as my sister-in-law appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing out here?" "Just needed some air," I said. She studied me with suspicious eyes. "You know, when he passes, decisions about the estate should really involve blood relatives. No offense." "None taken," I said, thinking about the envelope burning a hole in my bag. The next morning, my father-in-law asked everyone to gather in the living room. "There's something important we need to discuss," he announced. My sister-in-law sat forward eagerly. This was it, the moment she'd been waiting for. The official declaration that her children, the blood heirs, would inherit everything. My father-in-law looked at me and nodded. I pulled out the envelope, my hands shaking slightly. "Before we begin," he said, "I want everyone to understand that family isn't determined by genetics. It's determined by loyalty, love, and who you can count on when everything falls apart." My sister-in-law's smile faltered slightly. "Now," he continued, turning to me, "please read what's inside." I broke the seal. Inside was a single document. As I read the first line, my sister-in-law's face went from confident to confused to absolutely furious. The lake house wasn't the only thing I'd inherited. My hands trembled as I read the heading aloud. "Complete asset distribution and trust documentation. Estate of William Theodore Patterson." My brother-in-law Devon sat up straighter. He'd been scrolling through his phone, barely paying attention until now. My sister-in-law's fingers dug into the armrest of her chair. "The following assets," I continued, my voice steadier now, "have been placed in irrevocable trusts with designated trustees as of April 15th, 2024. My father-in-law, William, sat perfectly still, watching his family's faces. First, I read, "The lake house property and surrounding 40 acres, valued at approximately $2.1 million, held in trust with sole trustee authority granted to." I paused, looking up at my sister-in-law. "Granted to her what?" Devon's voice cracked. Dad, you can't be serious. William held up one hand. Let her finish. I kept reading. Second, the Patterson family investment portfolio, valued at approximately $4.7 million, held in trust with distributions to be made at trustee discretion for the benefit of William's grandchildren, regardless of biological relation. Trustee, same as above. My sister-in-law shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. Those investments were supposed to go to the actual family. Sit down, Nicole, William said quietly. The tone made her freeze. I'd never heard him use that voice before. She sat. Third, I continued, throat tight, the Patterson manufacturing business, valued at approximately $8.3 million, to be held in trust and managed by, I had to stop and reread it, managed by professional trustees selected by the primary beneficiary, who is, everyone leaned forward, who is to be determined based on demonstrated commitment to family values over a 5-year probationary period, as judged by the current primary trustee. The room exploded. 5 years? Devin was pacing now. Dad, I've worked in that company for 15 years. You've worked there, William agreed. Doesn't mean you've earned it. Nicole's voice went shrill. This is because of her, isn't it? She's poisoned you against your own blood. Nobody poisoned me against anything, William said. I just paid attention to who showed up. My husband Timothy had been silent this whole time. He looked at me, then at his father, confusion written across his face. Dad, I don't understand. Why not just split things evenly? Because even splits assume equal effort, William said, and the effort hasn't been equal. I glanced down at the document. There was more, so much more. Should I keep going? I asked William. He nodded. They need to hear it all. Fourth, I read, the Portland rental properties, 12 units total, valued at approximately $3.2 million, held in trust for the benefit of William's great-grandchildren with distributions for education and medical expenses. Trustee discretion applies. Great-grandchildren? Nicole's voice dripped with venom. You mean my children's children, not her adopted? I mean all of my great-grandchildren, William interrupted, steel in his voice. Every single one. Timothy's kids included. And if you finish that sentence the way you were planning to, you'll find yourself removed from this meeting entirely. The silence that followed could have cut glass. Timothy's younger sister, Vanessa, spoke up for the first time. She'd been sitting in the corner, watching everything unfold. Dad, I don't understand. What about the vacation condo in Florida? What about your retirement accounts? Keep reading, William told me. Fifth, the Florida property has been sold. Proceeds, approximately $890,000, have been divided as follows. $290,000 to the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation, $300,000 to the National Adoption Coalition, $300,000 to various local charities selected by the primary trustee. Vanessa's face went white. You sold the condo? We spent every spring break there as kids. You spent 3 spring breaks there as kids, William corrected. Then you all got too busy. The place sat empty for the last 8 years. Seemed wasteful. And the retirement accounts? Devin asked, voice hollow. I found that section. Retirement accounts, valued at approximately $1.9 million, will provide for William's medical care and end-of-life expenses. Any remainder will be added to the trust for great-grandchildren's education. Medical care, Timothy's voice cracked. Dad, are you sick? William's expression softened when he looked at his son, the only one who hadn't demanded anything, the only one who looked genuinely concerned rather than calculating his losses. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, William said quietly. Diagnosed 5 weeks ago. I have maybe 6 months. The room went silent. Even Nicole stopped mid-objection, her mouth hanging open. Vanessa started crying. Timothy looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Devin just stared at his father, something complex and unreadable crossing his face. Why didn't you tell us? Timothy asked. Because I needed to see how everyone behaved when they thought I was healthy, William said, when they thought there was still time to butter me up or change my mind. He looked around the room at each of his children. I built everything I have from nothing. My father left me debt and a drinking problem. I worked 80-hour weeks for 40 years to give you all opportunities I never had, and I watched to see what you'd do with those opportunities. His gaze landed on Devin. You took a job at my company, then spent 15 years coasting. You show up late, leave early, and spend more time on the golf course than in the office. You thought the family name would carry you." Devon's face flushed red, but he didn't argue. William turned to Vanessa. "You call me once a year on my birthday. Sometimes you remember Christmas. You posted 47 vacation photos on Facebook last year, but couldn't drive 2 hours to have dinner with your father." Vanessa looked at the floor. Then he looked at Nicole and Devon together. "And you two have spent the last 3 years making sure your children understand they're better than Timothy's kids, because they share your DNA. You've made comments at every family gathering, subtle enough that you thought I didn't notice." "We never said anything directly to the kids," Nicole protested weakly. "You didn't have to say it directly," I said, surprising myself by speaking up. "Your daughter Isabel told our son Emmett at Easter that adopted kids don't get to be in family photos. She's 7 years old. She learned that somewhere." Nicole's face went scarlet. "Kids say things. Kids repeat what they hear at home," William cut in, "and I've heard enough." He turned to Timothy. "You I love, but you're also terrible with money. You'd have blown through an inheritance in 5 years buying depreciating cars and investing in your friend's doomed business ventures." Timothy actually laughed, a broken sound. "Fair enough." Finally, William looked at me. "You showed up. Every week for 8 years you brought my grandchildren to visit. You helped me repair the dock, organize the garage, sort through your mother-in-law's belongings after she passed. You never asked for anything. You never mentioned inheritance or money. You just showed up because you cared." My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. Not in front of Nicole. "So, yes," William continued, "I've put you in charge because you're the only one I trust to be fair, to take care of Timothy when he makes his inevitable stupid decisions, to make sure the grandchildren are provided for, to preserve what I built for the people who actually deserve it." "This won't stand," Nicole said, her voice dangerous and low. "We'll contest the will. No court will honor this. She's not even blood-related." "Contest all you want," William said calmly. "I've been working with Harold Finch at Finch and Bartlett for 6 months. Every document is airtight. Every trust is irrevocable. Every decision is legally sound and defensible. Harold's the best estate attorney in the state, and he assures me you'll waste your money trying." He pulled out his own document from inside his jacket. "In fact, there's a clause specifically about will contests. Any beneficiary who challenges the estate distribution forfeits their remainder interest entirely. That includes you, Devon, and your 2% stake in the manufacturing company. And you, Vanessa, and the $50,000 I'd set aside for your kids' education." $50,000? Vanessa whispered. "That's all?" "That's $50,000 more than you earned," William said without heat. "Just fact." Devon stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. "This is pure. I worked for that company for 15 years. "You worked there," William repeated. "You didn't build it. You didn't grow it. You didn't sacrifice for it. You just showed up and collected a paycheck that was 3 times the market rate, because you're my son." "Exactly. I'm your son. And she's my daughter-in-law, who acts more like a daughter than my own daughter does," William shot back, pointing at me. "Biology is an accident of birth. Family is a choice we make every single day. I've made my choice." The silence that followed was suffocating. I looked down at the document, hands shaking. There were still 2 more pages. "There's more," I said quietly. William nodded. "Read it." "Additional provisions," I began. "First, the lake house must remain in family use for a minimum of 15 years. It cannot be sold. The trustee may grant usage rights to family members at her discretion, but may revoke those rights for cause." I looked up at Nicole. Her jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "Second, the primary trustee will receive an annual fee of $75,000 for management of the estate, plus reasonable expenses. This fee is in addition to any beneficiary distributions she may receive." $75,000? Devon's voice went up an octave. "You're paying her $75,000 a year to give away our money?" "I'm compensating her fairly for managing a complex estate that requires oversight of multiple properties, business interests, and trusts," William corrected. "It's actually below market rate for estate management of this size." "Third," I continued, "the trustee has sole discretion to distribute funds for the following purposes: education expenses for all grandchildren and great-grandchildren, medical expenses for immediate family members, housing assistance in cases of genuine hardship, and emergency financial needs as determined appropriate. I turned to the final page. My voice caught as I read the last section. Finally, I said, throat tight, upon the trustee's death or incapacitation, trusteeship shall pass to her children, Emmett and Sophia Patterson, jointly. In the event they are too young to serve, a professional trustee shall manage the assets until they reach age 25, at which point they shall assume full control. The room went so quiet I could hear someone's stomach gurgling. You're leaving our family's legacy to adopted children, Nicole said, her voice flat with disbelief. Children who aren't even Pattersons by blood. They're Pattersons because I say they are, William said simply. They're Pattersons because their mother brings them to visit their grandfather. Because Emmett helped me feed the ducks at the lake last month. Because Sophia drew me a picture and taped it to my refrigerator. They're family because they act like it. He stood up slowly, bracing himself on the armrest. He looked smaller than I remembered. The cancer was already eating him away from the inside. This meeting is over, he said. The documents have been filed. The trust is established. If you want to contest them, talk to Harold Finch. His number's in the documents. He'll be happy to explain why you'll lose. Devon and Nicole exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between them. Then Devon grabbed his keys from the side table. We're leaving, he announced. Come on, Nicole. Kids, get your stuff. Their 3 children, Isabel, Connor, and baby Wyatt, had been playing in the next room, oblivious to the explosion happening in here. Nicole swept past me without a word, her shoulder deliberately bumping mine. You'll regret this, she hissed, low enough that only I could hear. All of it. They were packed and gone within 20 minutes, their SUV spitting gravel as they tore down the driveway. Vanessa left more quietly, tears streaming down her face. She hugged William at the door. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have visited more. I should have called. Yes, William agreed. You should have. She looked at me as she left. I'm not going to contest it. For what it's worth, he's right about everything he said. Then it was just the 4 of us, William, Timothy, me, and our 2 kids who'd wandered in looking for lunch. Emmett, our 5-year-old, climbed into William's lap without hesitation. Grandpa, are you sad? You look sad. William's face crumpled for just a moment before he composed himself. Yeah, buddy, I'm a little sad, but having you here helps. Sophia, 3 years old and fearless, started examining the papers scattered on the coffee table. These have lots of words. Are these important words? Very important words, I told her, gently taking the documents before she could tear them. Why don't you and Emmett go pick out a movie to watch? They ran off and Timothy slumped onto the couch, head in his hands. I should have known you were sick, he said. I should have noticed. I hid it well, William said. That was intentional. All of this? Timothy gestured vaguely at the empty room where his siblings had been. You orchestrated this whole thing, the timing, the meeting, reading the documents in front of everyone. I wanted them to hear it from me, William confirmed. Wanted them to understand why. If I just died and left it all to be discovered later, they'd have blamed you, blamed your wife, blamed the lawyer. This way they know it was my choice, my decision, based on their actions, not anyone's manipulation. Timothy looked at me. Did you know about all of it? Not all of it, I admitted. I knew about the lake house. He told me about that 3 months ago. The rest, I gestured at the documents. I found out when you did. $75,000 a year? Timothy said, shaking his head. That's more than you make at the clinic. I worked as a pediatric nurse, same as I had for the last decade. The salary was comfortable, but nowhere near $75,000. She'll earn every penny, William said. Devon will make her life hell. Nicole will spread rumors. There will be legal challenges, even though they'll fail. She's going to need compensation for the headache. He was right. I could already imagine the phone calls, the passive-aggressive Facebook posts, the family members I'd never met coming out of nowhere to contest things. Why me, though? I asked, voicing the question that had haunted me since April. Timothy's the one who's actually your son. Why not make him the trustee, or at least put both of us? William and Timothy exchanged a look. Because I'm terrible with money, Timothy said simply. That's right. I'd try to be fair to everyone. Would end up giving in to Devon's pressure. Would make stupid investment decisions trying to grow the estate. Within a decade, I'd have turned $8 million into maybe $3 million through sheer incompetence and misguided generosity. Plus, William added, Nicole and Devon would eat him alive. They'd guilt him, manipulate him, make him feel like the bad son who betrayed his siblings. But they can't do that to you. You're not their sister. You don't owe them the same loyalty. You can say no. He was right about that, too. I'd already proven I could say no to Nicole. She'd asked to borrow $3,000 last year for a temporary cash flow issue, which actually meant she'd overspent on a kitchen renovation. I'd politely declined. She hadn't spoken to me for 6 months. So what happens now? I asked. William settled deeper into his chair, Emmett still tucked against his side, already dozing off. Now you read the rest of the documents. Harold will call you Monday to set up a formal meeting. He'll walk you through everything, get you access to the accounts, explain the reporting requirements. There's a management guide, he continued, gesturing to a thick binder on the bookshelf. Everything you need to know about the properties, the business, the investments, names of my accountant, my property managers, my financial advisor. They're all briefed and ready to work with you. I pulled down the binder. It must have been 4 inches thick. This is going to take over my life, I said, feeling the weight of it both literally and figuratively. It doesn't have to, William said. The professionals handle the day-to-day operations. You just make the big decisions, approve or deny distribution requests, review quarterly reports, make sure everything aligns with the trust guidelines, and play referee when your family loses their mind, Timothy added dryly. That too, William acknowledged. We spent the rest of the afternoon going through the basics. William showed me where he kept keys, combinations, important phone numbers. He'd been preparing for this conversation for months, I realized. Everything was organized, labeled, ready to hand over. What about the cancer treatment? I asked at one point. The document said funds for medical care. Are you going to fight this? William's expression told me everything I needed to know before he spoke. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer has a 3% 5-year survival rate. The treatments would buy me maybe an extra month or 2 while making me miserable. I'm 73 years old. I've had a good life. I'm going to spend whatever time I have left fishing, spending time with my grandchildren, and making sure you have everything you need to handle what comes next. Dad, Timothy started. It's already decided, William said firmly. Palliative care only. Harold has my medical directive. When it gets bad, I'll move to hospice. I'm not doing chemo just to die bald and vomiting. The reality of it hit me then, really hit me. This man who'd become more of a father to me than my own biological father, who'd walked out when I was 12, would be gone in 6 months, maybe less. How long have you been planning this? I asked, blinking back tears. The estate distribution, I mean. 2 years, William admitted. After your mother-in-law died, I started really looking at how everyone behaved. Who showed up for the funeral? Who helped clean out the house? Who called to check on me in the months after? He looked at Timothy. You called once a week. That counted for something. But he gestured to me. She came over every Sunday for 3 months straight, brought dinner, sat with me while I went through photos, listened to me tell the same stories about my wife over and over again. Never once acted like it was a burden. It wasn't a burden, I said quietly. She was family. You were grieving. Exactly, William said. Family. Not because of blood or marriage certificates, because you chose to be. He pulled out another envelope from inside his jacket. There's one more thing, private, just for you. He handed it to me. The envelope simply had my name written on it in his careful handwriting. Open it later, he said, after you've had time to process everything else. I tucked it into my purse next to envelope B, which I still hadn't fully processed. That evening, after we'd put the kids to bed in the upstairs room, the one with the slanted ceiling and window seat looking out over the lake, Timothy and I sat on the dock, feet dangling in the water. Your family hates me now, I said. My family hated that you were adopted before they ever met you, Timothy corrected. Devin made that comment at our wedding about bringing in outside blood. Nicole told my mom you'd probably try to get pregnant to trap me into marriage. I'd never known that. She said that. Mom told me years later. She was pissed about it. Apparently, she told Nicole that if she ever said anything like that again, she'd be uninvited from family gatherings. I smiled despite everything. Timothy's mother had been wonderful. I'd loved her deeply, lost her too soon to a sudden stroke at 68. Do you think they'll really contest it? I asked. Devin will threaten to. Nicole will push him to do it. But once Harold explains how much it'll cost in legal fees, and how little chance they have of winning, he'll back down. Devin talks big, but he's cheap. He won't spend $50,000 in lawyer fees to chase a losing case. And Vanessa? Vanessa's ashamed, Timothy said. Did you see her face? She knows Dad was right about everything. She'll probably start calling more, visiting more. Too little, too late, but she'll try. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the lake lap against the dock posts. $75,000 a year? Timothy finally said. That's life-changing money for us. It was. Combined with my nursing salary and his income from the construction company, we'd be firmly upper middle class. We could afford to fix the foundation on our house, pay off the medical bills from Sophia's complicated adoption, maybe even take a real vacation instead of camping in state parks. It's also a lot of responsibility, I said. You can handle it, Timothy said with complete confidence. If anyone can manage my family's dysfunction while keeping things fair, it's you. Later that night, after Timothy had fallen asleep, I remembered the second envelope. I slipped out of bed, grabbed it from my purse, and took it down to the living room. Inside was a handwritten letter on William's personal stationery. Dear Claire, if you're reading this, we've had the meeting, and you now understand the full scope of what I'm asking you to do. I imagine you're overwhelmed, maybe even angry at me for putting this on your shoulders. I want to explain something I couldn't say in front of everyone else. When my wife was dying, I had to make hard decisions about her care. Pull the plug or keep her on machines, donate her organs or let her rest whole. My own children couldn't handle it. Devin shut down emotionally. Vanessa had a panic attack and had to be sedated. Only Timothy was present, but even he couldn't make the calls. He kept saying, "Whatever you think is best, Dad," and leaving the room. You were the one who sat with me, explained the medical terminology the doctors used, helped me understand the realistic outcomes versus the hopeful fantasies. When I finally decided to remove life support, you held my hand while I held her. You stayed until the very end, even though you'd worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital and had your own patients who needed you. That's when I knew. Family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who shows up when everything falls apart, who stays when it's hard, who does the right thing even when the right thing is painful. I'm dying. I'm terrified of dying, not of death itself, but of leaving my legacy in the wrong hands, of watching everything I built get squandered or fought over or divided by people who never understood what it took to create it. You're the only person I trust to protect what matters, to take care of Timothy when I'm gone, to make sure the grandchildren are provided for, to preserve the lake house so future generations can have what my children took for granted. I'm not putting this burden on you because I don't love my children. I'm putting it on you because I love them. Love them enough to protect them from their own worst impulses. Love them enough to ensure they're cared for even when they don't deserve it. The $75,000 annual fee isn't compensation. It's hazard pay. Nicole will make your life hell. Devin will call you at 2 a.m. demanding money for emergencies that aren't emergencies. Vanessa will guilt trip you about her kids' college funds. Extended family you've never met will crawl out of the woodwork claiming they're entitled to a piece of the estate. Stand firm. Trust your judgment. Be fair but not foolish. And remember that saying no to a bad request is often more loving than saying yes to keep the peace. I've set aside one additional thing that's not in the official documents. In the garage safe, there's a small wooden box. The combination is your wedding anniversary, 04-15-16. Inside is a collection of letters I've written to you, Timothy, and the kids. One for each birthday, each holiday, for when you buy your first house, for when the kids graduate, for when life gets hard. I won't be here to give advice or support, but I wanted to leave something behind. Some way to be present, even when I'm gone. Thank you for being the daughter I always wanted. Thank you for loving my son. Thank you for bringing light back into this family when we'd forgotten what that looks like. And thank you for agreeing to this. I know you didn't ask for it, but you're the only one who can do it right. With love and gratitude, William. I cried then. Properly cried. The kind of crying that shakes your whole body. I tried to stay quiet so I wouldn't wake Timothy, but I couldn't help it. Everything William had said was true. I would be fair. I would stand firm. And I would protect this family from itself, because that's what family does. The next morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. 17 missed calls from Devin, 9 from Nicole, 23 text messages ranging from, "We need to talk to you" manipulative to, "I hope you're happy destroying this family." There was also a Facebook post from Nicole that had been shared 47 times. I only saw it because my cousin had sent me a screenshot with a concerned message. The post read, "Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who destroy your family from within." My father-in-law was a brilliant businessman until his declining health made him vulnerable to manipulation. Now his estate, built on the backs of his actual children's sacrifices, is being stolen by an outsider who saw an opportunity and took it. Stage 4 cancer changes people, makes them suggestible, makes them turn against their own blood. To anyone dealing with elder manipulation, I see you. I stand with you. Family is blood, and blood doesn't lie. The comments were a mix of supportive friends agreeing with her and people who knew better calling out her entitlement. My favorite was from William's sister, my great-aunt Dorothy. "Nicole, I've known my brother for 73 years. His mind is sharp as ever. Maybe if you'd visited more than twice a year and stopped complaining about his boring lake house, he'd have left you something worth fighting over. But you didn't. So he didn't." Claire earned every penny. Timothy woke up to similar messages. He spent the morning blocking his brother's number and deleting social media apps from his phone. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," he said, showing me a voicemail from Devon threatening legal action for elder abuse. "Let him threaten," I said, surprisingly calm. "Harold said the documents are airtight." William came downstairs at 9 a.m., looking exhausted. The cancer was progressing faster than the doctors had predicted. He'd lost another 5 pounds since the diagnosis. "I heard your phone's buzzing all morning," he said. "Devon and Nicole," I confirmed. "She posted on Facebook claiming you're being manipulated due to declining mental health." William snorted. "Harold predicted that. It's why we had me evaluated by 3 separate doctors last month. All confirmed I'm completely competent. The reports are in the file." Of course he'd thought of that. Monday morning came too quickly. I took a personal day from the hospital and drove to Harold Finch's office downtown. Harold was exactly what you'd picture for an expensive estate attorney. Silver hair, impeccable suit, office with a view of the river. He'd worked with William for 30 years. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "I've been looking forward to this meeting. William speaks very highly of you." We spent 3 hours going through every detail. Harold explained the trust structures, the distribution guidelines, the reporting requirements. He gave me access information for bank accounts containing balances that made my stomach turn. "You'll want to set up a separate email address for estate business," he advised. "Trust me, the requests will start coming within a week, and you don't want them mixed in with your personal messages." He was right about that. "Now, regarding the anticipated challenges," Harold continued, pulling out another file. "Devon Patterson has already contacted a lawyer. They're exploring grounds for undue influence, diminished capacity, and breach of fiduciary duty." My heart sank. "Will that go anywhere?" "No," Harold said flatly. "We have medical evaluations, testimony from unrelated third parties, detailed records of William's planning process spanning 2 years. The trusts are irrevocable and properly executed. Even if they file, which they probably won't once they understand the cost, they'll lose within 6 months." "And the forfeiture clause?" "Would trigger immediately upon filing," Harold confirmed. Devon would lose his 2% of the manufacturing company and any future discretionary distributions. That's probably $200,000 in immediate value and potentially millions down the road. Once I explain that to his lawyer, this will die quietly. He wasn't wrong. 3 days later, Harold called to tell me Devon's lawyer had withdrawn after explaining the situation to his client. Devon sent one final rage-filled voicemail, then went silent. Nicole was harder to deal with. She couldn't legally challenge the estate, so she started a whisper campaign instead. Told everyone who'd listen that I'd isolated William from his family, that I'd used my medical knowledge to confuse him about his diagnosis, that I'd forged documents while he was medicated. The rumor spread through their social circle like wildfire. I started getting cold shoulders at the grocery store from people I'd known for years. One of the other nurses at my hospital pulled me aside to ask if it was true I'd taken advantage of my dying father-in-law. "No," I said simply, "but you're welcome to believe whatever you want." The vindication came 6 weeks later at William's oncologist appointment. I'd gone with him because Timothy was working, and William needed someone to take notes on the palliative care options. In the waiting room, we ran into one of Nicole's close friends, Maureen, the kind of woman who organized charity galas and knew everyone's business. She saw me sitting next to William and her face went cold. "William," she said warmly, completely ignoring me. "I heard about your diagnosis. I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do—"
"You could stop believing Nicole's lies," William said pleasantly.
"That would be helpful." Maureen's smile faltered. "I don't know what you mean. Claire tells me you've been asking around about whether I'm competent to handle my own affairs, whether I'm being manipulated." William's voice remained friendly, but there was steel underneath. "So let me be clear. Since apparently it needs saying, I'm dying, not demented. My daughter-in-law is helping me because she's the only person in my family who shows up without expecting something in return. If you have concerns about my mental state, feel free to discuss them with my oncologist, Dr. Reeves, who can confirm I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." Maureen stammered something about misunderstanding and hurried away.
"That was satisfying," William admitted when she was gone.
"Very," I agreed. The next few months followed a predictable pattern. William's health declined steadily. He moved in with Timothy and me in August when he could no longer manage the stairs at his own house. We converted the downstairs office into a bedroom. The hospice nurses were wonderful. They taught me how to manage his pain medication, monitor his symptoms, keep him comfortable. I dealt with end-of-life care in my job, but doing it for someone you love is different. Harder. Emmett and Sophia adapted better than I expected. They knew Grandpa was sick and wouldn't get better. They'd sit with him, watch movies, draw pictures that he'd taped to the walls. Sometimes William was lucid and engaged. Other times, the pain medication made him fuzzy and distant. Devin never visited. Vanessa came once in September, cried through the whole visit, and promised to come back soon. She didn't. Nicole sent a card that said, "Thinking of you during this difficult time." It was signed with just her name. No personal message. No apology, nothing. Timothy struggled the most. Watching your father die is brutal, even when you know it's coming. He'd sit with William for hours talking about nothing. Sports, weather, memories from childhood. One night in late October, William had a moment of clarity. The medication had been increased that afternoon due to breakthrough pain, so we'd expected him to be mostly unconscious. Instead, he woke up at 2 a.m. and called for me.
"Claire,"
he whispered when I came in.
"Need to tell you something."
I sat on the edge of his bed, took his hand.
"What is it?"
"The lake house," he said, struggling to form words. "There's something under the floorboards in the master bedroom. Far corner near the window. Loose board. Lift it up."
"What's under there?"
"Letters," he said, "from my father. Found them after he died. Never showed them to anyone, but you should read them. Help you understand."
"Understand what?"
"Why I did it this way," he said. "Why family mattered so much to me. Why blood alone doesn't mean anything." He fell asleep again before I could ask more questions. 2 weeks later, William died peacefully at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Timothy and I were both there. He simply stopped breathing. The hospice nurse confirmed the death, and that was it. 73 years of life reduced to paperwork and phone calls. The funeral was small. William had been specific in his instructions. No church service, no dramatic eulogy, just a simple gathering at the lake house with close friends. Devin showed up in a suit that was too expensive for the occasion. Nicole beside him in designer black. They paid their respects, made appropriate sad faces, and left within an hour. Vanessa stayed longer, apologizing repeatedly to anyone who'd listen. "I should have visited more," she kept saying. "I should have been there."
"Yes," I agreed when she said it to me.
"You should have?" She flinched but didn't argue. After everyone left, Timothy and I stayed at the lake house with the kids. We'd need to go through William's belongings, organize his affairs, handle all the administrative tasks that follow death. But first, I needed to check the floorboards. I found the loose board exactly where William described it. Underneath was a metal box, dusty and old. Inside were maybe 30 letters, all addressed to William in careful handwriting. I sat on the floor and started reading. They were from William's father, George Patterson, written over the course of a decade, from when William was 20 to 30 years old. And they were horrible. "William, I'm writing to tell you that you're no longer welcome at family gatherings. Your mother and I have discussed this, and we've decided that your decision to marry that woman has brought shame on the Patterson name. We raised you better than to marry beneath your station. Dorothy is uneducated Catholic and comes from a family of laborers. You could have had your pick of suitable women from good families. Instead, you chose someone who will drag you down to her level. Until you come to your senses and end this embarrassing marriage, consider yourself disowned. Your father, George Patterson. There were more. Letters criticizing William's business choices. You're wasting your inheritance on a failing manufacturing company. His parenting. Children need discipline, not coddling. His lifestyle. Living in that small house in that working-class neighborhood is humiliating for the family. The final letter was dated 2 weeks before George's death. William, I'm dying. The doctors say I have weeks at most. I'm writing to tell you that I'm leaving everything to your brother, Frederick. He's proven himself worthy of the Patterson legacy. You've spent 30 years disappointing me at every turn. Marrying that woman, starting that ridiculous business, raising your children without proper guidance. Frederick will carry on the family name with dignity. I hope you're happy with your choices. You'll live with the consequences. George Patterson. I sat there on the floor of the master bedroom reading these letters, understanding finally why William had structured his estate the way he did. Frederick had inherited everything from George. The money, the property, the family business. By all accounts, he drank and gambled most of it away within 10 years. Died broke and alone at 55. William had built his fortune from scratch through hard work and smart decisions, and he'd spent his entire adult life proving that his father was wrong, that Dorothy was the best thing that ever happened to him. That family was about love and loyalty, not bloodline and status. And then his own children had started acting exactly like George, talking about blood relatives and real family, making the same distinctions his father had made, choosing heritage over humanity. I understood now why he'd left everything to me. Not because I was special, but because I'd proven that family wasn't about DNA. My own father had left when I was 12 because he couldn't handle the responsibility of raising kids. William had been more of a father to me in 8 years than my biological dad had been in 12. And Emmett and Sophia, adopted, not blood-related, brought into the family through choice rather than biology. They were as much Patterson heirs as any biological grandchild. More so, maybe because their place in the family was chosen, fought for, celebrated. I took the letters downstairs and showed them to Timothy. He read them in silence, tears streaming down his face. I never knew, he said finally. Dad never talked about his father, just that he died when I was a baby. He was protecting you, I said, protecting all of you from knowing how cruel your grandfather was, and we turned out just like him, Timothy said bitterly. Devin and Nicole anyway, making the same arguments, drawing the same lines. We spent that night talking about the past, the present, and what came next. The estate administration took the next year of my life. Between my full-time job at the hospital and managing the trusts, I was stretched impossibly thin. But Harold's team handled most of the heavy lifting. I just made decisions and signed paperwork. The lake house became our retreat. We spent weekends there with the kids. Sometimes Timothy's cousins would call asking if they could use it for a week. I approved most requests unless they came from Devin or Nicole. Devin finally called in March, 6 months after his father's death. I need to talk to you about the business, he said, his voice stiff and formal. What about it? I've been working there for 16 years. I have institutional knowledge, relationships with clients. The new management doesn't understand how things work. They need me. They don't need you, I corrected. They've increased efficiency by 23% since you left. Profit margins are up. Client retention is stable. Silence. I need a job, he finally admitted. Nicole spent everything we had on lawyer consultations before I convinced her to stop. We're underwater on the mortgage. That sounds difficult, I said neutral. I'm asking for help. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Help family? I can approve a discretionary distribution for genuine hardship, I said. Send me documentation of your financial situation and I'll review it. How much can you approve? That depends on the level of need and whether the hardship is due to circumstances beyond your control or poor financial decisions. More silence. This is, he said finally. You're enjoying this, having power over us. I'm enforcing the trust guidelines your father established, I corrected. If you were in my position, would you give yourself a blank check after you spent months calling me names and threatening legal action? He hung up. 2 weeks later, he sent the financial documentation. They were indeed in trouble. $80,000 in credit card debt, mortgage 3 months behind, car payments overdue. I approved $15,000, enough to catch up on the mortgage and make minimum payments on the cards, but not enough to solve the underlying problem. Along with the check, I sent a referral to a financial counselor and a list of job openings at companies that didn't compete with Patterson Manufacturing. Devin didn't say thank you, but he didn't call me names either, which felt like progress. Vanessa was easier. She called in June, crying. I don't know how to pay for college. Both kids need braces. I applied for scholarships, but we make too much to qualify for aid and not enough to actually pay for anything. I approved $50,000 from the education fund. Half immediately, half when she proved the kids were actually enrolled in college. Thank you, she sobbed. I don't deserve this. I know I don't. It's not about deserving, I said. It's about helping family when they actually need it. She called every month after that just to talk. Slow progress toward rebuilding what she'd neglected for years. Nicole never called, never asked for help. According to the social media posts she didn't bother making private, she and Devin had separated. She was living with her mother and working as a receptionist at a dental office. I felt bad for her kids. They were innocent in all this. So I opened college savings accounts for all 3 of them with $10,000 seed money. They wouldn't know until they turned 18, but it would be there waiting. Because that's what William would have wanted, to take care of the kids even when their parents were impossible. 5 years passed. Emmett turned 10. Sophia turned 8. Timothy's construction business grew steadily. I eventually transitioned to part-time at the hospital so I could manage the estate properly. The $75,000 annual trustee fee helped immensely. Combined with the income from the trust investments that I was entitled to as a remainder beneficiary, we were comfortable for the first time in our lives. We fixed the foundation on our house, paid off all our debts, started saving for the kids' college in addition to their trust funds. Devin found work at a competitor to Patterson Manufacturing, earning half what he'd made before. He and Nicole reconciled, though their social media suggested it was rocky. They downsized to a smaller house. Their kids went to public school instead of private. They never spoke to us, never acknowledged birthdays or holidays. At my nephew Connor's high school graduation, they sat on the opposite side of the auditorium, but Connor found me afterward. Thanks for the college fund, he said awkwardly. My parents didn't tell me about it, but the lawyer sent me a letter when I turned 18. Your grandfather wanted to make sure you were taken care of, I said. My parents say he was manipulated into cutting them out of his will. What do you think? Connor looked across the parking lot at his parents who were watching us with hostile expressions. I think Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He always did. Smart kid. Year 6 came and went. The trust distributions for the grandchildren continued like clockwork. Education expenses, medical costs, emergency housing when Vanessa's daughter's apartment building burned down. I said no more often than yes. No to Devin's request for $50,000 to invest in a friend's cryptocurrency scheme. No to a third cousin I'd never met who wanted money for a business venture. No to Nicole's mother, who claimed William had promised to help her buy a retirement condo in Florida. Every no came with harassment, angry calls, threats of legal action that never materialized. But I stood firm, just like William had told me to. Year 7 marked the halfway point of the 15-year period where the lake house couldn't be sold. Emmett and Sophia had grown up spending summers there. They knew how to fish, how to kayak, how to identify birds by their calls. Timothy's cousins brought their kids every August. The house was full of laughter and chaos, exactly how William had wanted it. In July, on what would have been William's 80th birthday, we held a memorial gathering. 30 people came, including extended family members I barely knew. Devin and Nicole didn't attend, but Vanessa did, and her 2 kids now in college, and a handful of William's old friends who'd stayed in touch. We scattered his ashes in the lake at sunset. Emmett read a letter William had written for this occasion, one of the ones in the wooden box. Sophia played Amazing Grace on the violin she'd been learning for 2 years. He would have loved this, Timothy said, arm around my shoulders. He knew we'd do it right, I replied. That night, after everyone had left and the kids were asleep, I opened the binder William had prepared for me. I'd read through it dozens of times over the years, but I always found something new. Tucked in the back was an envelope I'd somehow missed before. It was labeled Year 7. Read on July 15th, today's date. Inside was a letter in William's handwriting. Dear Claire, if you're reading this, you've made it 7 years. halfway through the required holding period for the lake house, halfway through proving that you could handle this responsibility. I imagine it's been hard. Devin has probably made your life difficult. Nicole's probably poisoned what relationships she could. You've probably questioned 100 times whether you made the right decisions. You did. I knew you would. By now, the business is stable. The trusts are performing well. The grandchildren are getting the support they need. And the lake house is still standing, still bringing the family together, still serving its purpose. There's one final thing I need to tell you, something I couldn't include in the official documents. Remember when I said you'd earn every penny of that trustee fee? I wasn't kidding, but there's more to it than compensation. In year 15, when the restrictions lift, there's a provision that allows you to do one of two things. Either transfer the lake house into your name personally, removing it from the trust entirely, or maintain the trust structure for another generation. The choice is yours, truly yours, not dictated by the trust, not influenced by what anyone else wants. If you want to keep it for Emmett and Sophia, you can. If you want to make it available to the whole family, you can. If you want to sell it and distribute the proceeds, you can do that too. I'm trusting you to make the right call because you've proven over and over that you understand what family really means. Thank you for giving my final years meaning. Thank you for taking care of Timothy. Thank you for loving my grandchildren and raising them to understand that family is what you make it. And thank you for reading letters from a dead man who still has too much to say, even from beyond the grave. With eternal love and gratitude, William. I sat there on the dock, feet in the water, reading that letter under the stars. 8 more years until I had to make that decision. 8 more years of managing the estate, dealing with family drama, saying no when I needed to and yes when I could. It was exhausting, overwhelming, sometimes thankless, but it was also exactly what William had asked me to do, what he'd trusted me to do, and I wouldn't let him down. Timothy came out and sat beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, handing him the letter, just thinking about the future. He read it in the moonlight, then smiled. He really did think of everything, didn't he? Pretty much. "What are you going to do in year 15? I looked out at the lake, at the house behind us with its warm lights and familiar creeks, at the dock where Emmett and Sophia had learned to fish, at the woods where we'd hiked 100 times. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Ask me in 8 years. But I had a feeling I already knew. This place wasn't mine alone. It was ours. All of ours. The family that William had built not through biology but through choice. And that family would keep gathering here, keep making memories here, keep proving that blood isn't the only thing that matters. Maybe not the only thing that matters at all. Year 8 brought unexpected developments. Nicole filed for divorce from Devin in February. The court documents were public record, and they painted an ugly picture of financial mismanagement, debt, and mutual resentment. She was asking for full custody of the kids and claiming Devin had anger issues. "Should I be worried?" Timothy asked when we heard. "About what? About her trying to use the divorce to get access to trust funds, claiming hardship for the kids. I'd already thought of that. Harold's looking into it. If she files any claims against the estate, we'll deal with it then." The filing never came. Instead, Nicole moved across the country to Arizona with her mother, took the kids with her despite Devin's objections. The custody battle dragged on for months. I approved $5,000 from the discretionary fund for therapy for all 3 kids. Divorce is hard on children, and they hadn't asked to be born into this mess. Devin called in June, his voice broken. "My kids are in Arizona. Nicole won't let me talk to them without supervision. She's convinced them I'm dangerous." "Are you?" I asked bluntly. "What? No, I've never hurt anyone. He trailed off. I yelled sometimes when I was stressed about money, but I never raised a hand to them. Then document that. Get a custody evaluation. Fight for proper visitation. That costs money I don't have." "How much?" $5,000 for the evaluation, another $5 for the lawyer fees. I thought about it for a long time. This was Devin who'd called me every name in the book, who'd accused me of manipulating his father, who'd refused to visit William when he was dying. But his kids deserved a relationship with their father if he wasn't actually dangerous. "I'll approve $8,000, I said finally. 5 for the evaluation, 3 for legal consultation. The rest you figure out yourself. And Devin, if the evaluation shows you're unfit, or if you use this money for anything other than custody proceedings, you'll never get another penny." "Thank you," he said, And he actually sounded like he meant it. The evaluation came back 3 months later. Devon was cleared. No signs of abuse, no indicators of danger. The supervised visitation was removed. He got the kids every other weekend and holidays. He never thanked me again, but he stopped posting angry things about me on social media, which felt like a win. Year 9 was quiet. The estate ran smoothly. The business continued to profit. The trusts grew. Emmett started middle school. Sophia got her first lead role in the school play. We took an actual vacation to Hawaii, something we'd never been able to afford before. Is this what normal people feel like? Timothy asked on the beach, watching the kids play in the surf, not worrying about money constantly. I think so, I said, though I'm not sure we count as normal people anymore. He laughed. Fair point. Not many people manage multi-million-dollar estates while working part-time at a hospital. It was true. The estate had grown to nearly $12 million through careful management and good market performance. Patterson Manufacturing was thriving under professional leadership. The properties generated steady rental income. Every quarter, I reviewed detailed reports. Every month, I made distributions for education and medical expenses. Every week, someone asked for money. Most of the requests were legitimate. Vanessa's son needed his wisdom teeth removed, approved. A second cousin needed help with a down payment on a house, denied, not covered under the trust guidelines. Timothy's aunt needed medical equipment for her husband, who had Parkinson's, approved. I kept meticulous records of every decision, every distribution, every expense. Harold had impressed on me the importance of documentation. If anyone ever challenges your stewardship, he'd said, you need to prove every choice was reasonable and in line with the trust terms. So far, no one had challenged anything. The airtight legal structure and the forfeiture clause had worked exactly as William intended. Year 10 marked another milestone. I'd been managing the estate for a full decade. Emmett was 15. Sophia was 13. They were becoming adults, starting to understand the complexity of what their grandfather had set up. One night at dinner, Emmett asked, Mom, are we rich? Timothy and I exchanged looks. Why do you ask? I said carefully. Some kids at school were talking about trust funds and inheritance. I looked up our address and the property value, and you stopped working full-time, but we live better than we used to, so are we? I thought about how to answer honestly. Your grandfather left money in a trust that I manage. Part of it is set aside for your education. Part of it generates income that helps our family. But it's not our money in the way you're thinking. It's held in trust for specific purposes. Will we inherit it someday? Some of it, yes. When you're 25, you and Sophia will take over as trustees. You'll manage it for future generations. That's a lot of responsibility, Sophia said quietly. It is, I agreed. Your grandfather chose you because he believed you'd understand what really matters. That family is about more than money or blood. It's about showing up for people, like you showed up for him, Emmett said. Like everyone should show up for the people they love. I corrected. That winter, Vanessa called with devastating news. Her daughter Mallory had been diagnosed with leukemia, stage 3. She needed treatment immediately. The insurance will cover most of it, Vanessa said, her voice shaking. But there are experimental treatments that might help. They're not covered. It's $180,000. Send me the medical documentation, I said immediately. I'll approve it. Just like that? Medical expenses for family members are specifically covered under the trust. This is exactly what your father set this up for. She broke down crying. Thank you, God, thank you. I don't know what we would have done. You would have figured it out, I said. But you don't have to. That's the point of family. You don't have to face the impossible stuff alone. The $180,000 distribution was the largest single expense I'd approved. Harold reviewed it carefully to make sure it complied with the trust terms. It did. Mallory went through 8 months of brutal treatment. I visited her twice in the hospital, bringing gifts and books. She was 19, scared, and trying to be brave. My mom talks about you a lot, she said during one visit. Says you saved my life. Your grandfather saved your life, I corrected. I just signed the check he already wrote. That's not what she says. She says when everyone thought Grandpa was being crazy or manipulated, you proved them wrong. You've been fair to everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. Fairness isn't about deserving, I said. It's about doing the right thing, regardless. Mallory beat the cancer. She went into remission in August of year 11. Vanessa called me crying happy tears this time. Thank you. Thank you for giving me my daughter back. I'm just glad she's okay. You could have said no. The experimental treatment wasn't guaranteed to work. You could have said it was too expensive or too risky. Medical decisions belong to patients and families, not trustees, I said. My job is to make sure the money's available when it's needed. You and Mallory made the right call. Year 12 brought another surprise. Devin remarried a woman named Rita who'd apparently helped him turn his life around. They sent us a wedding invitation, which shocked me.
Should we go?
Timothy asked, holding the invitation like it might explode. Do you want to? Not particularly, but maybe it's a peace offering. We went. The wedding was small, held in Rita's backyard. Devin looked healthier than he had in years, less angry, more settled. He pulled me aside during the reception.
I want to apologize, he said abruptly.
I nearly dropped my drink.
For what, specifically?
For everything. For the things I said after Dad died. For contesting the will. For being a bad brother to Timothy and an even worse son to Dad. Rita's been in therapy for years, and she convinced me to go. Made me look at why I was so angry. And what did you find?
That Dad was right about everything, he said quietly.
I coasted. I took the family name for granted. I married someone who made me worse instead of better. And when he called me on it, I got defensive instead of trying to change.
That's very self-aware.
I'm not asking for money or trying to get back into the business or anything like that, he continued.
I just wanted you to know that I get it now. Why Dad did what he did. And I'm sorry for making your life hell.
Thank you for saying that.
Rita wants to meet you, if that's okay.
Rita turned out to be wonderful, smart, grounded, and seemingly good for Devin in all the ways Nicole hadn't been. She worked as a social worker and had 2 kids from a previous marriage. Devin talks about his dad a lot, she told me while our husbands talked by the food table. He has a lot of regrets. We all do, I said. He knows he screwed up his relationship with his kids. Nicole's convinced them he's the villain in their divorce. He sends child support and gifts, but they barely talk to him. That must be hard. It is, but he's learning that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people badly for years and expect them to forgive you just because you apologize once. I liked her. More importantly, she seemed to genuinely care about Devin and helping him be better. As we were leaving, Devin stopped me one more time. If there's ever anything I can do to make up for the past, let me know. I mean that. Just be a better person, I said.
That's what your father wanted. Not perfection. Just effort.
He nodded. I'm trying. Year 13 brought the first serious challenge to my stewardship. A distant cousin I'd never met filed a legal complaint claiming I'd mismanaged the estate. She alleged that I'd made inappropriate distributions, failed to maximize returns, and shown favoritism towards certain family members. Her name was Patricia, and she was the daughter of William's second cousin. She'd inherited $10,000 in William's will and apparently decided she deserved more. The case was frivolous, but it still had to be defended. Harold assembled a team of lawyers. We produced 7 years of documentation. Every distribution, every investment decision, every expense report. Professional auditors reviewed everything and found no irregularities. The case was dismissed within 3 months, and Patricia was ordered to pay our legal fees. But it was exhausting and stressful in a way nothing else had been. This is what he warned you about, Timothy said one night after a particularly brutal deposition. People coming out of the woodwork trying to claim a piece. I knew it would happen eventually, I said. I just thought it would be Devin or Nicole, not some random cousin who never even met William.
She won't be the last.
Harold warned me. Estates like this always attract challenges, especially as time passes and people hear rumors about how much money is involved. He was right. 2 more frivolous claims came in year 14. Both were dismissed quickly, but each one required legal defense, documentation, and stress. By year 15, I was tired. Bone tired. Tired of managing other people's expectations. Tired of saying no to unreasonable requests. Tired of being called greedy by people who'd never once visited William when he was alive. On July 15th, exactly 15 years after William's death, the restrictions on the lake house officially lifted. I could now make the decision he'd outlined in that letter from year 7. Keep it in trust for future generations. Transfer it to my name personally. Or sell it and distribute the proceeds. I called a family meeting for August 1st. Everyone was invited. Timothy's siblings, cousins, even Devin and Nicole. Anyone who wanted a say in what happened to the lake house could show up and make their case. 30 people came. It was the biggest gathering since William's memorial. I stood at the head of the same table where he'd sat 15 years ago and addressed them all. The 15-year restriction on selling the lake house has expired, I said. Under the terms of the trust, I now have 3 options for how to proceed. Before I tell you my decision, I want to hear from anyone who wants to speak. Vanessa went first. This place has been in our family for 75 years. My kids grew up here. Now my grandkids, Mallory just had a baby. They're starting to make memories here, too. I think we should keep it in the family. Timothy's cousin Bennett spoke next. I agree, but maybe open it up more. Let more family members use it throughout the year, not just summers. Devin stood up. Everyone tensed. I haven't been here in 15 years, he said quietly. By my own choice, but my dad loved this place, built it with his own hands before any of us were born. I think we should keep it. Not for me, I don't deserve to use it, but for the grandkids and great-grandkids. They should have what we took for granted. Nicole didn't come. Neither did several other family members who distanced themselves over the years. After everyone who wanted to speak had their say, I stood up again. 15 years ago, William Patterson sat in this exact spot and told me that family isn't determined by genetics. It's determined by loyalty, love, and who shows up when everything falls apart. I looked around the room at faces I'd grown to know. Some I loved, some I barely tolerated, some who'd made my life hell, and some who'd shown unexpected grace. I've spent 15 years managing this estate according to your father's wishes, I continued. I've made hundreds of decisions, some you agreed with, some you didn't. I've tried to be fair while honoring what William wanted. I pulled out a document. This lake house has been valued at $2.8 million. If I sold it and distributed the proceeds to all eligible beneficiaries, each person in this room would receive approximately $93,000. I could see the calculations happening in people's eyes. But William didn't build this place to be sold for cash, I continued. He built it to be a home, a gathering place, somewhere family could come together, even when everything else fell apart. I set down the document. So, here's what's going to happen. The lake house is being transferred to a new trust, a perpetual family trust that will maintain the property indefinitely. Professional trustees will manage the physical property, repairs, taxes, insurance, but family members will have usage rights according to a reservation system. I outlined the structure. Every direct descendant of William Patterson and their spouses would have equal booking rights. Each family unit could reserve 2 weeks per year. Major holidays would rotate between families on a 5-year cycle. All family members would contribute to a maintenance fund based on their usage. The trust document includes provisions for removing usage rights from anyone who damages the property, causes problems, or fails to contribute to maintenance, I continued. But otherwise, this place remains available to all of you, and your kids and your grandkids for as long as the trust exists. What about you? Vanessa asked. What do you get out of this? Same thing as everyone else, I said. 2 weeks a year and holiday rotation. I'm not taking extra privileges. I'm not excluding anyone who hasn't excluded themselves. Not even me? Devin asked quietly. Not even you, I confirmed. If you want to bring your family here, book your time like everyone else, follow the rules like everyone else, you're still family, even if you were a lousy one for a while. His eyes got suspiciously wet. He nodded and looked away. Why are you doing this? Bennett asked. You could have kept it for yourself. Put it in your kids' names. Nobody could have stopped you. Because this is what William wanted, I said simply. Not the specific structure. That's my interpretation. But the spirit of it. Keep the family together. Give everyone a chance to do better. Judge people by their actions, not their DNA. We spent the rest of the day hammering out details. The reservation system, the maintenance fund structure, the rules for behavior and consequences for violations. It wasn't perfect. People argued about fair usage policies and who should have priority during peak times. But everyone agreed to try it. The new trust was established by September. The first bookings went live in October. By Thanksgiving, every weekend for the summer was reserved. On December 1st, the 15-year anniversary of William's cancer diagnosis, I stepped down as primary trustee. I'd be maintained as a co-trustee along with the professional trustee from Harold's firm and 2 rotating family members elected every 3 years. Emmett and Sophia would join the trustee board when they turned 25, as William had originally planned, but they wouldn't bear the full burden alone. "How do you feel?" Timothy asked me that night after the last documents were signed and filed. Relieved, I admitted, and proud. "I think we did right by him." We definitely did. The estate was now worth $15.3 million, up from the original $8 million. Every grandchild had a fully funded college account. Medical expenses had been covered without question. The business was thriving. The properties were well maintained, and the family, fractured, complicated, imperfect, was still connected, still gathering at the lake house, still trying to do better. Not because of blood or obligation, but because one man had understood that family is a choice we make every single day, and he'd trusted me to help everyone else learn that lesson. 5 years after stepping down as primary trustee, I attended Emmett's graduation from college. He'd majored in business administration with a focus on nonprofit management. Sophia was finishing her sophomore year studying social work. Both of them understood their grandfather's legacy in ways their cousins didn't. They'd grown up watching me navigate the impossible task of being fair to people who often didn't deserve it. They'd learned that money is a tool, not a goal. That family is complicated and imperfect and still worth fighting for. At the graduation party held at the lake house naturally, Devin pulled me aside. He was 60 now, graying and slower moving. Rita was still with him, solid and steady. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Rita and I have been saving. We're buying a small cabin about 5 miles from here." "That's wonderful," I said, meaning it. "I want to be close to this place even if I can't use it as much as some others. I want my grandkids." He paused, getting emotional. "I want them to grow up knowing about their great-grandfather, about the family that he built, about the second chances he gave people, even people like me who didn't deserve them." "He would have liked that," I said quietly. "Do you know what the best part of all this is?" Devin asked. "My kids are talking to me again, all 3 of them. Isabel's bringing her fiancé to meet me next month. Connor calls every Sunday, even little Wyatt, who barely remembers me. He's trying to build a relationship." "What changed?" "I did," he said simply. "I stopped being angry about what I didn't get and started being grateful for what I still had. Rita helped with that, but also watching you manage everything these 20 years, seeing how you could have taken everything for yourself and didn't, how you could have excluded us and didn't, it made me realize that Dad was right. Family isn't about what you're owed, it's about what you do." We stood there in silence watching the party. 3 generations of Pattersons gathered around tables, laughing and arguing and making memories. "Thank you," Devin said finally, "for everything, for not giving up on us even when we gave you every reason to." "I made a promise to your father," I said. "I kept it. That's all." "No," he said firmly. "You did more than keep a promise. You showed us what family could be when someone actually lived by those principles. You changed the trajectory of this entire family." He was right, though I'd never thought of it that way. William Patterson had given me an impossible task: manage millions of dollars, navigate family dysfunction, be fair to people who hated me, and somehow keep everyone connected across decades and generations. But he'd also given me something more important: proof that family isn't about biology or obligation. It's about showing up, keeping promises, being fair even when it's hard, saying no when necessary and yes when possible, giving people second chances without being a doormat, protecting those who need protection, and building something that lasts beyond any one person's lifetime. 20 years after William's death, the lake house still stands. The trust still functions. The family still gathers, not perfectly, not without conflict or complication, but together. And that's what he wanted all along. I look out at the water, at the dock where I helped William replace boards 2 decades ago, where Emmett and Sophia learned to fish, where Devin's grandchildren are now learning to swim. "To family," I whisper, raising the glass I'm holding toward the sky. Somewhere I imagine William is raising a glass back, satisfied that the legacy he built, not of money or property or business success, but of chosen family and second chances, continues. Blood might be blood, but family is who shows up, and we all kept showing up.